Hello and welcome to the Esports Meta, your one-stop shop for everything esports. My name is Billy. I'm going to be guiding you through today's story, and with me, as always, my co-host, the co-host with the most, Nick Layton. Nick, how you feeling today?
I'm always feeling great. The weather was okay for me, so it's a good day. Good day.
Right. If it's not the rain, then it's the rain in our computers, because I know we both had some audio issues a couple minutes ago. Fingers crossed it holds out, that we can weather this storm, get through, and have some fun talking about this week's stories. And boy, are they doozies. Nick, I don't know if you've heard, but I'm going to run through the topics real quick so our viewers can understand where we're going with the episode today. Our main subject is that LCK,
the Korean League of Legends League.
League of Legends acronyms always get me confused, and it's like word soup, alphabet soup sometimes. But anyway, the LCK was DDoS this past weekend during competitive play, which dropped viewership and impacted a lot of competitiveness aspects to this situation. We're going to talk more about that. The next story, too, is the bomb that dropped yesterday, that a lawsuit from Nintendo has been settled, and the dust is now settling around that. So we'll discuss what that means for esports in general and how that might impact other IPs that have very protective owners. And third, there was a pretty dramatic bomb happening in Overwatch League right at the beginning of North America OWCS qualifiers that has shaken up one specific team and the community in general. So we're going to talk about all those three things, but we're going to start with headlines. Nick, how are you feeling with Fortnite these days? You were stomping me a couple weeks ago, but are you feeling pretty strong?
I could still beat you, but I haven't played it in like a week or two.
Listen, I got to go to Medify. I got to get some coaching. I got to get my 13-year-old cousin to teach me how to drop in better, because I just do not understand the battle bus. Give me Apex Legends. I'll stomp them with a Pathfinder any day, but all right. Well, talking about Fortnite, we're talking about the Fortnite Major 1 of 2024. The first tournament happened this past week, or a week and a half ago it was, and the prize pool and the winners were officially announced. So taking a look at that very quickly, you can see the Major 1 locks in its first players for the Grand Royale out of the different regions. So the players who made top 1, top 2 for each competition, each region, each area, are moving on to the International Global Championship later this year. It's a pretty standard affair. I don't think anything really shook up the meta. Players had to technically advance over each other, use strategy, and mind game each other out. We did see some pretty exciting close matches, and in North America, Acorn and Cold came out on top as our 1 and 2 seeds, making a pretty hefty payday for them.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous that there's it's just like people, right? Like they're just they're probably sponsored, because I don't know much about Acorn or Cold, but this is just like right in their pocket, like the amount of money that's going through this. It's EA. So you never know. And we talked about them and EA and Disney and cahoots a couple weeks ago, so the prize pools are probably going to get bigger and bigger, and this is just a lot of money for them.
And not just the prize pools, the notoriety. Like, we don't know these players, and we're fairly connected to the esports scene. I don't think either of us would claim that Fortnite is our game, but we do keep a pulse on this. And it's interesting to see how much money's behind it, how easily accessible it is to anybody. And then on top of that, just putting in the work, getting good, get good, nerd. And then you have the chance at competing in these tournaments and winning prize pools that are astronomical in notoriety. And the Disney Epic change, the investment there, that it's likely going to end up that these kids are going to be competing on ESPN, maybe ESPN 8 at first, the Ocho.
With Scrabble and Magic the Gathering, bro.
Competitive dodgeball. But, it's still something. And that's that's a positive step. And like, honestly, with the way it all works, I wouldn't doubt to see them on ESPN2. But the thing I want to anchor at, congratulations to these two players. Congratulations to all these players coming in first and second in their respective regions, getting a spot to the Grand Global Battle Royale. But the thing I want to spotlight here is that specifically with Acorn and Cole, the prize pack that they're walking away with. So this is all the stats for this major one in North America. You know, it had a total prize pool to all players.
$665, huh?
$665. It's pretty no, 665,000. It is a big time tournament. And like, I would like to see what the bottom end would make, but just to kind of start us off, the top end, first place, Acorn and Cold, they split 70K each. That is a whole year's salary right there.
So how did Peter Bott walk away with $90,000? Like, look, he came in with $90,000.
No, that's true. How did second place come there? Well, it's probably because this was a duo or because it was a tie draw situation.
Is that a no hit bonus? Have you seen the no hit the Camp Dad or Bush Dad? I think his name is. All right, so this guy's like, he's a dad. He's older than us, and basically the algorithm allows him to negate not dealing damage and just hide him. So if you get a bonus for not dealing damage and by players or by the ring itself, right?
Okay.
And let's say you came in like 14th place and you were supposed to get like negative 20 points for being 14th place. The bonus itself is higher at higher tiers, I think it was, or higher at lower tiers. Like basically it didn't matter too much. He walked away with like 80 plus points at like Diamond Plus for like not dealing damage. So like did this guy do a no hit run and walk away with like $90,000 because of the bonus?
How is that possible? How does that work?
It's fully intended, bro. He literally like you got to check him out.
Completely, but like it's intended based on the rules. Like the rules let them do it, and like that kind of rule set. I don't know if it allows diversity of play, but it definitely allows that rat style of play, right? You hide and scurry and just like.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, dude. And he like the other day like he didn't release a video, but it was just like a clip on his stream. When I was like looking at it, I was like, oh man, is that like that's exactly how he does it? And he like explained it. He's like, and he like knows the numbers because he started talking and he was like, no, that number's wrong. He's like, no. He's like 14th place. He's like, you get 14th place, you're supposed to lose like 20 points. Mm-hmm. And if you don't get hit by anything, he's like, you'll end up getting like 86 points. Instead of 20. Wow. He's like, so you're just gaining your LP or whatever it is.
Yeah, you're ratioing the game. That's a good catch. And I wonder if Peter Bott here in second place, walking away with a bigger prize pool than first place split. One would assume that these two drew or something happened and they decided to split. Or they're just teammates or something. But
true.
Looking into that, like that might be kind of interesting, but either way, 90K for second place is huge. 70K for third place. You're the same as first place effectively. I want to see what, top 49th place walked away with a grand, which is still a good payday for a tournament like this. It is probably, slim pickings getting in there. It's still probably like a 0.01% of the population that could compete at this level. But again, the meritocracy of it, the harder you work, the better you get good, nerd, and you might get the chance to compete and win some money on this stuff. So always impressive to see the money coming through stuff like this. Always impressive to see how it's going to scale up competitive games, esports, the scene, collegiate. There's going to be a huge draw.
Well, Billy just disappeared. So let's talk about it. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a little wild when it comes to doing some Fortnite stuff. But the players themselves like keep getting younger and younger like each year when it comes to like Fortnite, which is pretty crazy. And I was watching an interview with one of the pros. And he was like, yeah, dude, Ninja, he's like, was great in the beginning. He's like, He was absolutely one of the top players. He's like, now, absolute noob. He's like, me, 2 years from now, absolute noob. He's like, I won't be able to play this game in like 2 years. He's like, you don't even realize the stuff that the young kids are coming up with, and like all these new strategies and everything that they're doing. So
yeah,
you never know how long like these guys have, considering how many young kids are actually like coming up and playing this stuff. So
no, you're absolutely right. And like a lot of esports emphasizes the twitch reflex, the impulse control and stuff, but that's something that, you know, we've been building a different episode, a different topic about that, where esports has a problem with the fragmented sense of stuff. And part of that might be the zoomer and mentality. Not that these kids can't compete, not they're not capable, but their brains aren't done cooking. And that's actually something we'll talk about a little bit later with the Overwatch news. But where do we find that balance of these competitors who are so good at this thing and being able to make a longevity sort of situation where everybody wins? Not for corporations, not for businesses, but the esport, the competition, the game, etc. There's a fine balance, and we've got more coming up about that. We'll be talking a little bit about in a minute with our Overwatch coverage. And that's definitely a topic we're cooking up a little bit later. But with that, you know, like I said, I got cut off. Sorry about my technical issues there. Thanks for covering on me, Nick. Fortnite's definitely exciting to watch because it is bringing a lot of new people into a competitive scene, a diehard population, a diehard player base into a competitive scene. And you're seeing the money get invested. You're seeing big businesses like Disney get invested. And it's only up from here. It doesn't really seem like they're going to stop.
Yeah, seriously. And I mean, like, the more money that they earn, the top 100 earners, I think there's only like maybe like 5, maybe a little bit more that are actually Fortnite. So who knows? Like, overall in esports, like the most top 100 earners of all time, the seven of them are like Fortnite players. So you never know how much money like goes into this thing. And I wouldn't have expected like Fortnite to actually be up there as like the top 100.
Yeah,
at least with like maybe one of them or something like that. But like, it's not even a name that you know. So
no, that's fair. That's true. And with prize pools like $1 million, I remember one of the first Fortnite esports that I saw was held like I think in MSG or something equivalent, and having a $1 million first place was wild. And you know, I think a 13-year-old kid won that, and that's great. That's wonderful. But like, you know, we're talking about there's so much more to it, and longevity is a definite issue in esports. And I think part of that makes the game fragmented because then people who want to emotionally attach to the games might have a harder time connecting with a player long term because that player just then turns into a streamer and then that streamer goes variety. But anyway, talking about games with longevity, we're going to move on to our next story. One of our main subjects here, the LCK got DDoSed. League of Legends is a game with longevity. It's been around for what, 14, 15 years at this point?
Yeah, since 2000. Like, and so I played it since 2009. Oh, like on and off.
Yeah,
because like 2009, I was like playing World of Warcraft, but like that was the first time that I played League of Legends. Was in 2009, so it's been around for a while. And right now with all the hackings and everything like that, all these DDoS attacks, it's been a little rough for like a lot of servers, not just specifically like the Korean League of Legends servers. And this isn't even just like their competitive servers. Mm-hmm. It's their regular play servers, you know?
Right. It's been a problem across the board, but it's not a problem that Riot hasn't dealt with previously. It might be interesting to see if this is the first time they've dealt with it on this scale or this notoriety, especially against competitive play. But League's been around a long time. League has shown to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, esport in the world. Audience, player base, etc. So this makes that story a bit more interesting. The LCK, the League Championship in Korea, was disrupted because of these DDoS attacks. Games had to pause because of the server issues. more or less, they ended up playing them privately and then trying to go live again. But Nick, have you watch League in general? I think you were watching the LCK for this. What happened? In your best words, your summary of this?
So like hilariously enough, I was a little bit late to the game, and like some of these attacks have been going on for about like two months, I think it is, like a month or 2 months now that the servers have been getting like DDoSed. Yeah, it's been like a little bit of a struggle over there. And whether or not it's going to happen like over here, because it's happening to other companies on the US side of things. But when it comes to like League, I don't know like the specific reasons why it's being done, obviously, because they haven't like caught anybody, but it's not just to disrupt the game, right? But you know, there's something else underlying there, but it is definitely like affecting a lot of stuff. It's affecting the practice that people get on regular servers when they play like solo queue and stuff like that.
Wow,
a lot of pros, including the best player in the world, Faker, has decided not to play any solo queue like while this is like going on, and he really plays solo queue. Like, you know, it's his thing. Like he's got a lot of solo queue hours just in general. He loves League.
Yeah.
He loves his team. He loves like T1. T1 has like literally taken care of like his whole family since like he's been the best player, taking care of him. And so like him, not that like any of these names really matter, like Chovy, a lot of like prominent pro players and top streamers have like just decided to bow out of a lot of this regular play, which has affected like a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's super interesting because like I didn't realize it would go that deep. Obviously, competitive servers getting DDoS is a problem. Servers in general getting DDoS is a problem because if you just want to enjoy the game, you can't. But for it to kind of impact practice or scrims potentially,
not so much scrims, but like their personal practice, like their personal time practice that they use in like solo queue in order to like test some things out that they're not ready to bring the scrims, stuff like that. It has affected them in that way, I'm sure. But you know,
even in a marketing sense, having the best player in the world not be able to play the game when they want to play the game and publicly announce they're not going to. That's
I think Ashley Kang made a tweet about it.
We do have that right here, so I'm going to bring that over to us real quick. Facts about the current DDoS-related pauses at the LCK. Korean League server has been plagued by DDoS for the last 2 months. Real quick, for our audience, anybody who doesn't understand what DDoS is, it's a direct attack on service. More or less, people try to overrun login services, authentication services, or any just sort of entry-level service to a game, to a port, to a website with a lot of automated requests. And basically, they overrun it with a lot of digital automated requests so that the server gets overheated, overloaded, and crashes. So then nobody can do anything. So just briefly, that's what DDoS in a roundabout way is. And that's what's happening to this. The Korean League server has been plagued by DDoS for the last 2 months, with individuals being rendered unable to play solo queue. Major streamers or professional players like Faker, Chovy were seen stopping solo queue. Let's see what else they have to say. One of the reasons Korean fans are frustrated about the current situation, DDoS has been a known issue for many weeks, with the user base expressing frustration. There are questions being raised if the LCK implemented appropriate preventative measures for such a known issue.
I mean, like that
point there, but yeah, what's up?
I mean, yeah, that's like speaking on points like that is like, you know, you can be frustrated and you can be like, are you doing enough? I don't believe you. And it's like, you don't know what they're doing behind the scenes. And it could be like a new way of DDoS attacks on these servers specifically. It could just be like a new route. It's definitely frustrating. And I'm sure the one thing that we forget is I'm sure that the people who make money off of this game and doing this esport in general are super thrilled about the DDoS attacks. They're really they're really okay with not doing anything to keep this going, right? Like they're just like, hey, somebody's knocking on the door. Let them break it down. It's cool. We'll just make money somewhere else. Like it's just nonsense. And like
the head of marketing, the head of marketing's probably thrilled. Like, you know, it's a great idea this week. let's let the best player in the world not play the game. That's great marketing.
Yeah, and it's not like, when the game that I was watching, like, started to pause and like started to get interrupted. It's not like they started to spam us with ads. Like, like they didn't do anything like that. They literally were just like, I signed in, and the one caster was just like, he caster cursed it by like opening his mouth about it, he's like, hope we don't have any trouble today, guys. And then like, so a little pause happened, and he's like, oh no, and it was nothing. And then we go like 4 more minutes, and he's like, oh no, we're pausing. So, it's interesting. Caster curse is real. So.
Caster curse is real, confirmed. You heard it here first on the esports meta. But this
they've known a long time in Korea that the caster curse is real.
Fair enough. They're always ahead of the curve with esports there. But this is like obviously a pretty big deal. And like the frustrations of people not being able to play the game. Like if I only have a certain amount of hours in a given time frame to play a game, and I don't get to play the game, not because of my fault and my reasons, because of like services I'm paying for, like especially like a WoW thing, which is actually another point. Riot's not the only one. League is not the only one that's been DDoS recently. It's a thing that happens across the board. So I'm going to bring us into a tweet from Overwatch CS, Blizzard CS, Warcraft CS, that there was a DDoS issue this past week as well. I don't know if it was any connections. One would assume that there is no connection. It's likely a different actor in different situations, but it's not unique for these companies to get DDoSed. And then on top of that, it's much more frustrating, or it's just equally frustrating when you're paying a subscription for something like World of Warcraft and you want to play the game and you can't because of this stuff. So, I can empathize with this when you want to watch the game, when you want to play the game and it's not there. For it to get to a competitive sense means it's probably pretty targeted. It's pretty major. And there's, on a limb, a hot take might be there might be something major that they overlooked when they were technically running it. I'm assuming the tournament's got to be online, right?
No, I mean I'm not 100% exactly, but usually like their MS is extremely low. So depending on so there's like options where some people can play from like remote sometimes. So I know
really? They've got like a multiple options sort of player stance.
So, like because of COVID and everything that happened, like they would still have like the studio, but then people would like connect into the studio. So I think before that, these were just LAN games. As far as I was concerned, it was like one MS. It was like LAN games. So like doing things in the game get a little bit like easier. When you're on like low latency, right? Like reacting is a lot more fun and a lot bit easy.
Yeah, for a competitive sense, that like makes it more integral and more fair versus logistics of getting there, though. But yeah,
and I think they ended up with like 15 MS or something like that. I don't really know like the exact MS. Oh, Billy dropped again. Yeah, he did. I'm not really sure exactly what the MS exactly would be now, but I do know that they're definitely able to connect to it. So definitely able to actually attack those servers because they're able to like log in remotely and stuff like that.
Right. It'll be interesting to see how Riot bounces back, the LCK bounces back with this, because once players and people get a taste in their mouth, it's hard to remove that sentiment. And like we've talked about this in the back end, and for some of the other stories that we do discuss, how there's two metrics in a given situation. You have a sentiment metric as well as an objective metric, like a mechanical metric. Usually with patch notes, like that's something to talk about, but I think it applies here to like experience as well. Kind of a wild situation that it is happening on the highest stage of a competition. Fortunately, not like a grand finals or like a tournament, like a playoff situation, but it's still enough where it's like causing big waves and having big problems on this stuff. Just like I'm having big problems with my internet connection apparently today.
Yep. It's frustrating, right? It's super frustrating. And I mean, like for the pro players, and the event organizers and stuff like that, I think it's a little bit more than a frustration, you know. It's a little bit more severe. And then when it comes down to like the player base, right? It's not the sentiment of like go touch grass, but like play a different game. Like you don't have, like you can sit down in your chair. You have the ability to game for a couple hours. Like it doesn't need to just be League, right? It doesn't need to be World of Warcraft, right? Like draw an MS Paint, man. Get some angries out. Like do whatever you got to do. Yeah, just have a good time. And there's always something else for you to do. And I think like everybody should, play different games. Like I hate being forced into work on games, and like League's not like that, where I feel like it's like work. So I do think it's a little bit easier for a good portion of the player base to like sit down. Oh man, I can't play. All right, I'll go play something else. It's totally cool.
Right. But like, when you talk about somebody's profession in esports happening, that's where it gets definitely like they're messing with their money. And it's not just their money. And like a point that you made, a very valid point, is that I'm sure that these developers are also equally frustrated, if not more, because they're on the front end of it. They're literally dealing with it. And there's probably a lot more information that they know that they cannot reveal, either legally or like technically or just sentiment wise. Like it's just going to go over my head because I don't know. I want to leave us off on this story with a message that was in response. Let me bring it up real quick. Here we go. LCK would like to extend our sincerest apologies again to fans, team officials, and viewers who were inconvenienced due to the DDoS attack. Pretty standard affair so far. We acknowledge that our inadequate response caused significant disruption to the ticket holders of the second match, which, again, another point, you're paying money to watch the thing and you can't watch it. We understand the audience patiently waited until late hours to watch the match, only to experience confusion with the sudden decision to postpone the match. We apologize again for this. At that point, too, like you're in a situation where you can't really do much other than postpone it, because if you can't play the game, so it's a lose-lose situation, seeming for everybody.
It's awful for them, and especially when it comes to like League. I've said this to you before. They know that as soon as like game's over or game is paused, viewership drops. No one's going to wait around for the the loading screen, right? Like we're not waiting for the loading screen, so we're going to leave and we're going to go watch something else, or we're going to go do something else. So it's super impactful.
Right. The retention rates are definitely like getting hit. And like I know that's something that League in the setup somewhat struggles with. Map picks bans, hero pick bans. It can be a tedious process sometimes, and that could affect viewership. But that's a conversation for another day. To continue with the message here, during the 2 League rest days following the DDoS attacks, LCK conducted network inspections and prepared various response measures. We are diligently researching and implementing the best possible measures to ensure the LCK fans can enjoy a pleasant environment for viewing. Although our prepared response protocols may successfully deter the DDoS attempts, it is anticipated that the perpetrators of these attacks may try other approaches. They're not really saying anything here so far, Nick, right? Like it's pretty much the shocker is they're saying, acknowledging that they messed up or they could have done more, or they're taking a responsibility and ownership. And otherwise they're saying that it's an arms race, which just like esports, who can get the edge, really? So they're not really saying anything. Your take on that?
I mean, what are they going to say? Right. Like, what do they have to say? It's like a murder case almost. Like the more information you give out to the public, the more the people who are doing it to you have, right? So like what's the real point? They just go, hey guys, sorry for the inconvenience. It's a free game, so we're not going to give you anything. But like, thanks for showing up. And like, again, like, how many people stayed around after the pause of like 30 minutes, right? And or like came back or just looked for the game the next day. So they lose a lot of money. And like, what are they going to say? Guys, we lost a lot of money too. It's hurting us just as bad. Like,
who's going to feel bad for the multi-billion-dollar company, right?
Exactly. Like, I feel a little bit worse for like them, but it would, like, if it was Disney, I'd be like, kick bricks, bro.
I mean, I've worked in an online service provider company, and we've got DDoS before, so I know how that feels. So my sympathy goes out for them. And like a lot of people are just trying to do their jobs, etc. So that's a frustrating situation, of course. But it is what it is. And speaking of losing a lot of money, I think it's time to segment and transition into our next topic. We're going to move into a pretty bombshell story that just happened yesterday. Pretty shooken up about this one. In a recent turn of events, Nintendo had settled with Switch emulator Yuzu to let me bring this up real quick. They had settled with Switch emulator Yuzu in $2.4 million suit and ordered Yuzu to shut down. The backstory here is that a while ago, Nintendo's Zelda Tears of the Kingdom game came out. Before its launch date, there was a leaked release that was distributed online. I don't know if they figured out who, what, where. Maybe they have, and maybe that's part of why this suit is been down to a settlement. But Nintendo ended up suing Yuzu last week after months after the game is released, claiming that they were the perpetrator or they were a major proponent of the dissemination, the spread of the legally pirated digital version of the game. Nintendo's not really a stranger to lawsuits or to aggressively protecting their IP. So this doesn't really come as a surprise, but the surprise is that after a week, just under a week of the lawsuit being filed, that the two parties had settled a week later for this $2.4 million and for Yuzu to shut down. Nick, do you have any initial thoughts on this or kind of insights to what we're looking at with this?
So, like, before anything, like, my immediate thoughts were like, all right, they didn't sue Palworld.
Okay.
Right? They didn't sue Palworld. And Palworld, everybody's like, this is like a ripoff. Look at these models. Look at these things side by side, right? There's something here. Like, everybody in the world's like, there's something here. And Nintendo's like, phooey. Ain't nothing. Like, we're not, like, our lawyers didn't say anything. We can't do anything, right? And they didn't sue Palworld, but they did sue Yuzu. And a couple thoughts on that is like Yuzu's small, right? So were they just trying to like bleed the money out? And Yuzu's like, hey man, we got like $4 million. Let's give them 2.4 and be done with it, Or like, or are they completely out of money? Or did they do something bad and they had to give up on it, right? Or is this just Nintendo trying to stop something like Brawl Plus? Or, one of their competitive games getting modded in a way that's better for the taking out tripping or something like that when they got in Brawl Plus that they did.
Right. So, speaking of the Palworld, just to kind of go a little bit of a tangent, I love the memes of that. And it's surprising that this lawsuit sets a precedent. And I wonder what's going on in the background because you're right. They didn't sue Palworld. They also haven't sued Dolphin Emulator, to my knowledge, which has been an emulator that runs GameCube games, Wii games. And a lot of people use it for online competitive Smash. Because it has a better no loss packet, I believe. Their net code is fantastic by comparison to Nintendo's own and Ultimate. But back to the Palworld thing, real briefly, I love the memes for this. And like one of my absolute favorites, like this is everybody playing Palworld right now. It's like, so Nintendo's got to be looking at the same thing. They got to be thinking, I'm going to sue this. And as a company who usually does get aggressive with their IP, would likely go after something like this for similarities, but ultimately so far haven't felt like they could.
Well, it's probably something to do with the fact of like, a lawyer goes like, hey, what'd you base, oh my God, I can't think of his damn name right now.
Lucario?
Lucario, right? What'd you base Lucario off of? Anubis. And it's like, hey, Palworld, what'd you get this guy from? It's like, yeah, we, Anubis. We went with Anubis. Like, what do you want from us guys?
Usually in
those it's like there's Thors everywhere, right? Like, it doesn't really matter. Like,
usually in those lawsuits, they have to look at the code and they'll see like very similar or copied code. And that's hard to prove because you have to get access to the code. I know there's been a lot of other games that have been plagued by it, but like that's usually the litigiousness that has to happen. And I'm sure Nintendo is probably combing through right now with Palworld. But I think this really spotlights again how aggressive that Nintendo can be with litigation. And then also just precedent. Like, why are they going after Yuzu now and not Pal World? Or maybe they are in the background and stuff, but like, I think it kind of might show their hand a little bit more for this lawsuit. And that's the interesting conversation I want to talk here, because ultimately this impacts esports, because you have one company, a Nintendo, owning one IP, getting to do whatever they want with it, which to a very large degree is their right. But there's some interesting gray areas that happen with this.
Yeah, like depending on how everything like shakes out with the other lawsuit that we're mentioning, that this is like a little bit connected to, which is like how much stranglehold can a company have over one of their IPs after they release it into the public, right? Like, can Hasbro come in and be like, you're playing Monopoly wrong? Like, it's the Parker brothers who own Monopoly, but but you didn't care, or you didn't even realize. But like, that might be something, and that's to go along with Blizzard right now, and Activision getting sued over the rights of like Call of Duty and being able to have a Call of Duty tournament and everything like that. And so we're going to see some interesting shakeout when it comes to these companies with these lawsuits that are coming up.
That's a fair point, because I think a lot of the control of IP is business, especially in a digital sort of sense, and how things can go open source. There was a recent story about a game called City of Heroes, if you're familiar with it, Nick, where the developer had shut down back in 2013, 2014 after struggling, but they got sued by Marvel, claiming they owned rights to all superheroes. It was a superhero MMORPG. They ended up winning that, but like, it really hurt them. They ended up shutting down their servers not too long after that in 2013, 2014. And just recently, about 6 months ago, the official developer gave all the rights to the game, the licensing rights to run and operate a.
I'm back. Yeah, City of Heroes is great. They did give away the operating rights to a nice little fan-based community in order to keep the game alive.
Right. Where did I get?
And I don't remember their exact name.
You kind of picked up on it, but
yeah. So basically, you got cut off right when you were about to talk about the giving away the rights.
All right, yeah.
So the other company,
they ended up giving the rights away, like you said, to a private server, which is unheard of. Usually, you have these big developers chase after the private servers and sue them, cease and desist orders, the whole 9 yards. With some of them, like Blizzard Vanilla Classic, bringing some people for consultation on how it worked, so that they can emulate and do it itself, which has proven successful. But it sets a very interesting precedent, because you have that happening. But then you also have situations where if you own a physical copy of Tears of the Kingdom, you can rip that to digital and play it on your computer. That's not a legal issue. And past precedents have shown that that's legally possible and okay. I don't think that has been updated, or this is going to be updated, but that's like another interesting fold in this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to come down to whether or not these are going to be considered games or art specifically, right? Like, the only argument you can have is like, you can't tell me how to play my game. Like, it's really like what it is. You can't, like, I'm not playing it online. You can't tell me how to play it in general, right? And so if they're considered games, I assume at the end of the day, like, a court's just going to be like, well, you put a game out, they're allowed to play it, and they're allowed to do whatever they want with it. Like, Parker Brothers isn't allowed to stop a Monopoly tournament. They're just not. Like, they can't do anything about it, right? So in the same sense, like, can Nintendo do something? Maybe. It might be Japanese law, like a Japanese copyright law might be different.
That is a big thing Nintendo hangs on. That Japanese law is more conservative towards companies and ownership in those IP ways. But that's a fair point I think you bring up, where if I bought a board game and I go to my friend's house and we play a tournament with 10, 20 people, the developer isn't going to come in and sue me and shut me down or cease and desist, even if I do that every week. Hell, even if
I told you, Mr. Beast, right? He runs he does a specific board game tournament about a game called Dune that came out in the 70s, right? And he like loves this game. He's cracked out on it. He thoroughly loves it, and he does the only like world championship for this game. He invites everybody from across the world who are like the best players at Dune, and he hosts it, and then he plays in it, and sometimes he wins. But no one would even stop Mr. Beast just in general. But if he wasn't Mr. Beast, no one would stop. No one from the Dune thing would stop him from playing this game as like a tournament and raising awareness on the game. That's like I guess Nintendo thinks that they're just like their advertisement is good enough, right? And like some publicity is bad publicity for them.
Yeah, they want to protect their IP from the sketchiness of some very interesting things. And like, we can talk about that with our next topic. We're not going to segment over that just yet, but more or less you can have a lot of individuals tarnish brands and tarnish situations or leagues or teams. And that's, something Nintendo wants to protect. And
one thing to say on that though, is there's no background checks when you buy a game. Okay. And you can post your review of your game, regardless of your background. You could be a really bad person, right? Someone that no one even jail wants you to be, like, right? You could be a really bad guy. You could play Tears of the Kingdom and be like, I love this game. This game is amazing. Like, and Nintendo can't do anything. So like, again, no background checks when you get the game. So you can't really like say who's allowed to have it. Like it's just weird.
Well, you're right, but like, then are you allowed to say the code of conduct and the terms of service, and you breaking TOS gives you like the legal authority to do XYZ about it? That's where this all gray area comes in, and all those different aspects to the story, because this is also going to add a new precedent, a new fold to it, because like PC Gamer article here, their headline is saying it's an enormous blow to console emulation, which may or may not be the case, because we don't know what happened on the back end. If Nintendo caught Yuzu with a smoking gun, if Yuzu absolutely royally effed up, like they got caught with their pants down kind of situation where they had the ability to stop this dissemination of it or something. And I don't know if they're going to end up sharing all that because it was settled. Usually settlements will keep it low key, but it's very obvious Nintendo wants to protect its IP, and it feels a little contradictory to what Nintendo's been doing lately. And it's not totally, because it is very much in the MO, the modus operandus of Nintendo, litigious company, protecting what's theirs, selling games for $60 20 years later kind of mentality. But like this past fall, there was a big uproar with Nintendo getting into the esports more deliberately. They put out these community tournament guidelines for the 3 different regions in the world. I know there's more than 3, but they just labeled 3: EMEA, North America, and Asia. All essentially said the same things, except having slightly different wording based on the laws in those regions. But more or less what this was, the big upset thing was, community tournaments and organizers, they had to maintain a nonprofit mentality. They had to make sure it was a low scale. You can see they can have 200 in-person participants or 300 participants online. And then they kind of kept the profit down, and like the collection fee controlled, and like saying the prizes can't be more than $5,000. This was a huge deal because Nintendo never had a hand in it, but they would always cease and desist these community run organizations and tournaments. And really they would impact the biggest ones, the Evos, the summits, etc. Fighting game community famously hates Nintendo. I don't want to say hate, that's a very strong take, but they famously always have friction with Nintendo for that.
As they should. Like, this thing screams, we hate esports, and go F yourself.
On initial,
look at this, $5,000. Who can be a professional at any Nintendo game that's competitive?
You're
making $5,000. Like, it's garbage. It's absolute effing nonsense.
That's where the initial reaction ends up
Look at
being
this
wrong.
12-month period, no more than $10,000. That is the most insane nonsense. Like, burn Nintendo to the ground, man. These people used to make porn cards. They need to shut their mouths and let people play their games. Like, it's so crazy. They used to make nudie cards, and they still do to this day. Make cards with naked ladies on them, and they're literally going to be like, no more than $10,000, guys. Like, get out of here, you pervs.
Well,
like,
were they the ones who invented Rule 34 on the internet for these characters, I guess?
I'm not even joking about the porn playing cards. Okay,
that seems wild.
I'm not.
I believe it.
Go look at it. Go for it. They used to only make playing cards. But anyway,
you're right. You're right. This is not sustainable for competitive esports. This is to rein in small scale and not for profit, to make sure community is community. That's what this is. And that's what the initial take is. Because when we go down to the bottom after all these things that like feels really bad for all these grassroots FGC community organizers and these passionate players and gamers, you get into these then tournament conditions where it basically says you may reach out to Nintendo and request a license to hold tournaments and hold things. You may get a license to use the press kits, the copyrighted materials, because that's another thing. You can't use a logo of the game. You can't use a character to promote the tournament. Like, that is an illegal thing. And like, to a degree that makes sense, but this is Nintendo coming in with their most open fist, but still giving the wildest slap across the face to these people.
Look at this one sentence right there. Nintendo is not a sponsor or affiliated with the tournament, right?
That sums up this whole thing.
What thing do you know where a person is allowed to not be involved but still bark orders at you? Just off the top of your head, what thing that makes money are you like? It's that happened to? That sounds like the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my whole entire life. Like, what is this? Yeah. Like, we're not involved, but you better listen to us. What?
Right. There's a definitely.
Could you imagine your neighbor telling you what to do in your own home? That sounds insane. I don't own your house, but I used it, but I hate it. Like, I built your house.
But with that metaphor, if you live in an apartment building, you guys share a wall, or you live on the same floor, and if you get bugs, they get bugs. So there might be some aspect to it where it's truthful, but yeah, like, that has a big paradox of hypocrisy to it. Do what we tell you, but we're not involved.
Yeah. And like, it's they wipe their hands clean of any responsibility of anything that goes on at the tournament in general, right? And they don't want anything bad. They don't want, like, nothing can touch them. And if anything bad does happen, Nintendo can go like, well, we weren't responsible, but we did give them rules to follow. And it's like, as soon as you start telling people how to run their tournament, you're responsible. Like, I don't care. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, it doesn't make any sense that you're allowed to make the rules for the tournament, but then you can't. But then you're not involved and you're not responsible for anything that happens.
True. It's like you're a ghost and you're trying to make yourself a ghost, but then also get all the benefits from being a ghost. It's wild. And like, that's the duality of the situation and the folds that cause this. Because when you have a company own an IP like that, they get to do what they want. It's not like the NFL. The NFL does not own football. The MLB does not own baseball, NBA, basketball, et cetera, right? So like, you don't see the same sort of friction to an extent, but you still see the NFL going after anybody using the broadcast, which makes more sense as a product, but that's where, like, this is going to be a very interesting thing to keep an eye on. We're going to keep talking about it as it develops, as we see anything happen with the precedent, with the tournaments as 2024 continues for the Smash or Nintendo tournaments. But the one thing I want to leave us off with is that in another situation, in another world, hypothetically, there's two Call of Duty players currently suing Blizzard, Activision Blizzard, for, as it says, $680 million, which is a catchy, grab your eye attention number. They're suing them for monopoly. And I think it's on the similar basis, but they're claiming unlawful monopoly in the lawsuit and saying that they're coerced the teams are coerced into paying millions of dollars to play in this league, and that there's no other way they can play. So like that also then has this extra fold if Nintendo isn't involved and isn't saying these things, but then telling you have to do XYZ and that this is the only way you can do it. There might be that sort of situation where unlawful monopoly or coerced. And this one I wanted to bring up a bit, just very briefly, because it does seem a little frivolous, but at the same time, it might have some merit, especially in conjuncture with the Nintendo lawsuit and the Nintendo conversation. So, Nick, off the bat, very briefly, what do you got for me on this?
So, I mean, like, I remember like when we first started to talk about it, and like I first heard about it, was like I was like, oh, this is crazy. Like, it's their game; they're allowed to do whatever they want, right? But like stopping people from developing like another league, that's where like the issue becomes, right? Like that's where like the real monopoly is of like you have to play in our league. And let's say it goes in the favor of, and I really like get your names to like be your names normal. Stop letting them put your gamer tags into these articles, people. Scum. Well, like it's ridiculous. You got to put the gamer tag. It's ridiculous. It's a little ridiculous, especially from like a loss. It's like Scump is suing these people, like blah blah blah. Like it sounds crazy, but again, like when you have something like this, if it does stop like Activision Blizzard, it might have some merit against Nintendo. Again, it's a Japanese company, and Billy's out again. It is a Japanese company, so we never know exactly what would actually happen when it comes to that, but it might give some sort of precedent on the American side of things to, stop Nintendo's firm grip on their properties themselves. Let's see.
Yeah, hey. I'm back. I'm back. This DDoS attack on my servers are really annoying me, man.
Yeah, no, it's getting you today. It's getting you
really
good.
Is. No, yeah. So I didn't hear how you wrapped it up, but let's leave it there because I think that kind of sums up. So we have about 10 more minutes, about 8 minutes to be precise, to go over our last subject. And it's a pretty big subject, and it's one that we've been continually talking about. And I'm going to say it flat out right now. If you're typing, you're not playing, right? Leave toxicity out of this in general, but we're going to go into the last story. It does talk about how image and situations and brand and whatnot can be affected and impacted. And I'm just going to jump into it. This past weekend, the North America OWCS qualifier round started, the Swiss round. Players and teams were competing to earn points to become the top 16 teams in the region so that they end up to group stages. At the beginning of play, it was very exciting. Rosters had been set. And I think about 3 hours before the games were supposed to start, suddenly the situation happened and there was a big bombshell that was dropped. I'm going to share the news article that talks about it a little more, and then I'm going to overview it real quick for us, Nick. All right. So sure. More or less is about an undisclosed burner account shared online that DMs of racist messages, people saying the N-word. First and foremost, we're not here to argue if and when it's okay. It's never okay. It's absolutely never okay. And like we said, if you're typing, you ain't playing. And second with that is that you have players who are Overwatch League that are doing this or did this allegedly, and then et cetera with proof. People are going to come after you, and you have a target on your back. And like, here's the perfect example of that. 3 hours before you're supposed to compete in the new esport and have potential for tournament and whatnot, you're basically kicked out or you're dropped and you can't play and your team is messed up. Anyway, so like people are going to put a target on you. Don't give people reasons or ways to mess your future up. So like that's first and foremost, absolutely saying that. But as we go through it, let's see what happens, talk about it. And like I said, we're not discussing the validity or the context and if it's okay or it's not okay. So an anonymous account had released screenshots of a DM. Apparently they're from a French player or French players. that at the Overwatch World Cup months ago took over the shoulder of a couple players, pros like Sam, OG, and I can't remember the third one, but there was anonymously leaked out, like I said, a couple hours before the tournament started, and immediately the team that they were on disbanded and found another team miraculously pretty fast. The team was M80. They were very forward and direct about it, honest with it. Sam, for his credit, took responsibility, was pretty honest about it. But this kind of connects to that conversation we were saying, where you've got these young kids who are on the up and up, who are able to represent not only themselves, their country, perhaps their game, but these big companies. And then something like this happens. It feels bad, of course, but then it just like, I can't put it into words, Nick. I don't know if you're able to a little bit better than me. Hold on a second. I believe you're muted.
Well, what I was saying, I was muted because I was coughing. Like you're just an idiot. Like I'm not like whether or not anything. Like you're just an idiot doing shit like this, right? Like you're just an idiot. It's clear as day. I don't know about the two other players, right? Because it's like 3 Overwatch players were exposed. Like I don't know any more. Like I don't even need to know like more details, right? I need to know more details about the 2 other players, not the morons with a terrible vernacular, right?
Right.
Like I don't need to know more about these 3 individuals. I need to know more about the 2 other players whose lives were impacted by 3 players, and like now they're off the team, right? Like
right,
they got disbanded. So I want to know more about these 2 players. I want to know if they are like just close friends with these guys is why they got booted off too, or did they just drop it because they didn't know? Like I want to know more about the 2 other players. We got clear as day about the 3 of these.
Yeah. So
want to curse, but like don't really want to curse on camera. Like it's just really stupid. It's just really stupid.
To that point, that's the definite theme, and like I do appreciate the one player taking responsibility for it. But long story short, with this, like M80 is the team. You can see here that this was the roster. They got disbanded. Sam leaves. Ultraviolet leaves. I think OG's the other player that's involved in this, or maybe I don't know specifically, but I know Sam is the focus with this. And then this was hours before the tournament started, and then literally the next day they come in and they have a whole new. They basically pick up Hawk's team as the M80 team. So like they really let down like other players that are on here, even the coaches, with that action and whatnot. And like there's other situations where a pro player was banned for allegedly cheating, but like this seems to be more player count. Like players feel like they're frustrated because like the automated responses of complaints from in-game players are saying he's cheating when he could just be that good, because Kai's known for those hit scans. So like him getting banned for something like that, claiming he was cheating.
He plays on stage, right?
What's that?
He plays on stage, right?
Well, he used to, and now like with land, over stuff, yeah. So like, it's not that he really is cheating or not. It's just that sentiment that. So like, this is a nothing burger. Then there's other situations where like another Overwatch League tank got permanently banned, and he's kind of retired, kind of doesn't play.
I don't even play the game, he says.
Yeah, I don't even play the game. So like, we don't know how true that is or not, because this and that. But like, again, these things feel like nothing burgers. Going into like this situation, it's definitely not a nothing burger, because it brings back the whole point of not point of esports, but this the situation of things, and then leaves the players, leaves the league, leaves so many people high and dry with this. And it just, we're not going to be able to have a fully comprehensible brand in a player sense or a game sense if things like this keep notching it back. There's only so much Kanye West marketing strategy you can do before you're completely ostracized. And like, even on that way, you need to be loved first for it to happen.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on this as we wrap up? Because it's pretty straightforward, and it's just something we needed to talk about, how drastically immediately it messed with the Overwatch Championship Series, and how M80 had to bounce back super duper quickly and still be competitive to try to make group stages.
No, I want to know how long until these guys are reformed, right? Like saying stupid shit like this,
right? And will they be reformed? Will they come back to the scene? Will they have a redemption arc? We don't know. My favorite saying was from a streamer, Boger. It's like, don't say it. Don't even start. Don't give people a reason. There's no argument to why you can or can't say this. It's not even a conversation there. But then the third thing and the funny thing is, like, I hear that Walmart's hiring. So you can go from playing in the Overwatch League, man, and you could pick up an application at Walmart, basically, from doing something like this. It's unfortunate, and like it really sets a lot of things back. But Nick,
I don't think it's unfortunate. It's deserved. It's deserved. Get booted, bro. Get booted. Kick bricks.
For the rest
You're
of this
out.
team. It's unfortunate for the other players who were not involved. True. It's unfortunate for the image of the esport or the situation. But like Nick, I want to repeat it again. If you're typing, you're not playing. Leave that shit off, not involved. Just not bother with it. And that's kind of it for the esports meta today. Nick, you want to send us off, or shall I?
You can do it. Chill and don't type. That's all I got.
Play, don't type. This has been your esports meta. Hopefully you found it interesting. Check us again next week at 7:00 for our next podcast, or follow us on all our social media. Hit like, subscribe. It helps the algorithm tell the algorithm that you like us and you want to see more of us. And of course, we really appreciate it. That's it from me, Billy Sims, joined with Nicholas Layton, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.